name's Alexa Groft, and it's an honor to present to you today, Developing 21st Century Skills Using Technology Integration in the Early Childhood Classroom. I was inspired to research this topic when Professor Kevin Bauer discussed the concept of taking risks in our Educational Foundation course, Technology for the Elementary Classroom. I was intrigued by this topic because I can relate to it on a personal level. This is a picture of me at my December graduation. This is my first semester here at Millersville as a transfer student. As many of you may think or may have even experienced, transferring schools involves taking risks. When examining the classroom setting, we often forget that students will someday be out of our classroom and into the real world. This poses a question to educators. How are we going to prepare students for this ever-changing world? Students learn a variety of content every day, but are they really prepared for the real world? Utilizing technology integration in the classroom can promote and encourage 21st century skills. These skills include leadership, responsibility, creativity, and innovation. The skills are essential for students to become productive citizens in society, and it all starts in our classrooms. Quoting Abraham Maslow, "If the only tool you have is a hammer, you treat everything as if it were a nail." The resources that I'm going to show you are sample resources, but we must also focus on creating the 21st century experience. This is what's known as the TPAC model, which focuses on what we must teach and how we teach, and the technology that we use to make it accessible to our students. We should not just focus on the technology, but the content and pedagogy that drive the instruction. In her book, Technology, Pedagogy, and Education in 2007, Diana Lorard quotes, "We have to be careful not to focus simply on what the technology offers, but rather what the pedagogy requires." So here you can see how that all ties into the pedagogy and the technology and content knowledge. Mathematics. When examining how we teach mathematics, we can utilize what's called Flipgrid. Flipgrid is an app that allows students to record themselves and interact with other classmates. Students can record themselves using a math problem and share it with their peers. This app can also allow them to respond to their classmates. While utilizing the app during mathematics, students are becoming problem solvers. They're taking ownership of their learning. This may also make them enjoy solving mathematical problems more. And then here I have listed the 21st century skill set that when students utilize Flipgrid, they're gaining creativity, innovation, and communication. English language arts. Teaching this can be challenging. Every student learns in a variety of ways. When planning a reading comprehension lesson that focuses on vocabulary, students can utilize the vocabulary website. It displays the vocabulary words in a creative manner in a musical way. They can then turn around and create their own vocabulary videos on the words that they are currently learning. This can be used through a podcast or iMovie or any other application. This promotes creativity because students are coming up with and constructing their own connections with the vocabulary words. Learning to construct their own connections is crucial in this world because it allows students to take ownership. It also encourages them to become aware of what works for them in the classroom. And utilizing vocabulary in the classroom, the skill set that they're learning are collaboration and communication. Science. Science is also a subject in which students can develop 21st century skills. Educators can utilize what's called Tinker to teach students to learn how to code. Tinker is a website that empowers students to become creators. For example, it fuels over 87,000 schools and powers the imagination of over 60 million kids worldwide. It provides a variety of tools and outlets for students to develop coding skills. It teaches and promotes 21st century skills. This includes developing a growth mindset. The Tinker website describes its benefits. Quote, "Using a coding platform like Tinker is particularly powerful because it requires kids to use their technical skills to build the program, as well as their artistic and storytelling skills to design a compelling program." This is also important because it can get female students involved in coding and spark an interest in science and potentially a career in the field. The benefits that coding provides students is lifelong. Besides all the 21st century benefits, it also helps students develop a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the mindset of practical optimism. In the Teach Thought article, How to Cultivate a Growth Mindset in Your Classroom, they describe this concept as, students describe a growth mindset as believing your basic skills are the things that cultivate through your efforts. A growth mindset is so important in today's society. If a student develops a growth mindset early on in life, they will be able to handle life's challenges more effectively. And Walt Disney and Michael Jordan are crucial examples of how a growth mindset can get you through anything. As discussed, technology integration can greatly impact our students by allowing them to develop 21st century skills. As future educators, it is imperative for us to go out and learn about these resources. Most importantly, we need to use these resources in the classroom. The technology resources and skills that we have impact our students for a lifetime. These activities find students' passions, develop their leadership skills, and put problems into their hands using innovation. The future of the world is in our classroom, and we must prepare them for this ever-changing world. Does anybody
Thank
have
you.
any questions?
Are all the resources you listed here free in the app?
Yes,
Okay.
everything is free. All of the resources they can use. And on the vocabulary site, they actually have plain beats, like there'll be videos with the beats, but plain beats is what students can use to make their own vocabulary video. Yep, so everything is free, yep.
Yeah, and you also mentioned like early childhood classroom. I mean, I'm a mother of a 2-year-old, so I was thinking about how early they can use those apps.
Right, so it would probably, maybe you could implement it more in like the first and second primary, and then of course when they get into 3rd or 4th grade, they could use that as well. But you could definitely like introduce some of the technological resources early on, like music and things like that, just to get them acquainted with it. And like I said, with the technology, integrating in the classroom to me is not just focusing on solely implementing Flipgrid or solely implementing vocabulary. It's the pedagogy first and using the technology to enhance that so that the students are interactive. They're not just sitting in the seats, they're creating, because students are going to remember what they create. You know, when you ask people what their memories are of school, they are most likely saying, oh, I went on a field trip. It's getting those life experiences. And that's what they're going to remember. And as a future educator, to me, that's what's most important, is creating the experience, the 21st century experience. So when they come into my classroom, when I finish my degree here at Millersville, it's an experience that when they move along and go out into the real world, they're ready for it and they're problem solvers and critical thinkers.
So I used to be an early education major as well. So a lot of problems with like using a lot of the technology in the classrooms currently in our time of day is that a lot of students have a lot of distraction problems. So like it's not getting them up and moving as much as like just being on a screen and kind of using that. And then on top of that, like say you do something like that and it could be a homework assignment, a lot of students don't have the capabilities of like the internet at home, and they don't have like the Wi-Fi, or their parents don't have the time, and like like technology isn't always going to be like the better option to help get them engaged, or is there like another way you can get them engaged without using technology that can be actually inclusive?
Right, so how I view it is, whenever you offer a technology option, you should always offer a non-tech option. So say we're doing Flipgrid in class. So I would have a student say they didn't want to do Flipgrid. Well, maybe they can create a poster or draw. So when you offer a tech option, you should always have a non-tech option. But most of these events, like I wouldn't be doing all of these in one lesson. I would maybe have one day we would do the vocabulary. We wouldn't be overdoing it with the technology. So, but that's a good point to say, what if they don't have the resources? So that's why I think it's also important to incorporate a non-tech option as well. Go ahead.
What about, so I know a lot of schools don't have like laptops or the iPads or any kind of technology in schools.
Right, so that, I mean, of course that just depends on what district that you go in, but you can do the activities in groups as well. So if you, like, depending on how many laptops or iPads you have, you can either group them or you can have it be a station with you, the teacher, where they're creating these videos. So it just depends on the demographic of the school district and exactly what you have to work with. So, I mean, that's definitely something to consider depending on what situation you encounter.
Any other questions?
So, I presume for some of these there is some time that's required for these students to actually kind of learn and adapt to the technology or the tool itself. How often would you use some of these, like say throughout the school year, to kind of
Well, I personally
make sure that that time that's required to kind of start up and get students familiar with something, translates to actual learning.
So what I would do is I wouldn't introduce so many of these at one time because one, that's overwhelming, and two, they wouldn't really be able to pick all of that up. So I would start by introducing maybe one, I would do Flipgrid, then I'd introduce Flipgrid for a while, and then when I see that they're starting to kind of get like tired of doing Flipgrid, I might incorporate another one. So a few weeks I think is when I would have them use it, but I wouldn't integrate all of these in one. In certain other subjects like language arts, I was saying using vocabulary, I would have that be a project, but I wouldn't be doing all of these all the time.
Now, what do you think I guess you talked about them getting bored with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time frame for that fatigue? I mean, how long does this typically last?
I think like for them to be on the app.
Well, not in an individual like classroom setting, like not for on a daily basis, but I mean, like how long would Flipgrid carry on for? Like 3 weeks before they get bored with it?
I think that just depends on
how often you're
like
using
the
it.
personality of the students. I think that's another thing that's important with this. Like you have to assess, you have to know your students. So if I don't know my students, then I'm not going to be able to tell, are they getting bored, are they not engaged in the curriculum? So I think that kind of goes back to the whole pedagogy part of knowing your students so that I can recognize, oh, they're getting tired of Flipgrid, so hey, it's time to switch it up. So I kind of think it ties back to how I was saying that it's pedagogy first and then integrating the technology. So make sure you know your students, because that way I can observe my class, and if I see that the majority of them are tired of vocabulary, or tired of Flipgrid, or Tinker, I can switch them to a new activity, or maybe say, hey, let's take a break from tech and let's do a non-tech option. Because regardless, that's giving students of all different interests the opportunity to learn and grow with what meets their needs.
If you see that one app is working better with certain students, would you break up the groups in different sections and then have them do different ones, not all working at the same one at the same time?
Yeah, I think the flexibility of these apps is great because you can have like a station over here for students who want to do posters or do something, writing, or you can have them over here, hey, do you want to work on Tinker, or do you want to do, some other kind of building with coding? So I think having options is always key. Choice, I think, is key in a classroom. I mean, obviously not too many because you don't want it unstructured, but if you have structured choices, I think that definitely allows them to feel like they have ownership of their learning.
And then you can tell the different strengths of each one by what they're drawn to at which station that they prefer.